Great. Okay. Hi, everyone. So today I'm going to be interviewing Louise Bennetts. She is an incredible freelance designer, and she not only just works in fashion, but she also works across all different kinds of projects. She's shown work at is it the Tate Britain you've shown work?
Modern.
Tate Modern. She studied at ECA for a BA and she did her MA at the Royal College of Art. She also teaches at ECA occasionally. She's also taught at the Royal and just has an incredible portfolio. And she's going to take you through some projects that she's worked on and also a bit about her process and how she works. So I'm going to stop talking and give it over to you, Louise. And I'm going to ask Louise some questions at the end as well, um, just to delve in a little bit deeper about how she works and how she feels about her work and all the fun things. Okay, so Louise, I'll just hand it over to you. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Colleen. That was a very sweet introduction, and it's lovely to meet all you guys. Um, Let me just share this presentation. Um, I hope you guys are seeing this in full screen.
Yes, we can see. It looks good.
Oh, good
Great.
stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I've put together a presentation with both a bit of my BA and MA collections, and then projects from the past, like Killian says, 10 years since I graduated from RCA. Um, I I worked sort of in-house in industry for a bit, but since then have pursued what I guess you would call a portfolio career. So different freelance projects, many of which can currently overlap. Uh, and I'll touch on them and how things progressed from studying very much fashion to working in fashion, then fashion adjacent, fashion research, and increasingly into kind of fine art that uses textiles. I'll kind of explain how we got there. um, and I think I'll aim to talk for maybe 35, 40 minutes, but then leave some nice breathing time for discussion with Colleen if there's any stuff you want to like pick up on or
Yeah.
ask
And
more.
I'll try really hard not to butt in.
No, you're
If I
welcome.
get too
Welcome.
excited, I might be like, oh, what was
Or
this? What was
honestly, if
that?
something's
But
really not clear, because obviously for me, I know all of this, but if it's not well explained, do feel free to interrupt me.
no, of course. I'll try not to, but yeah. Okay. Thank you,
Uh,
Louise.
you're so welcome. So this is a long time ago now, and I had to dig for these images a little bit. But this is a BA graduate collection from ECA in 2012, which was called Flux, and it was looking very much at it was kind of based on a trip that I'd done in the summer to Italy, where you see these amazing building facades that have been like evolved over time. So a lot of cities in Italy are walled, so they don't grow outwards, but they constantly regenerate within themselves. And you can read. I hope you can see my mouse. You can read on like the facade of the buildings all the things that it had previously been and how it had changed. And I was looking at that sort of conceptually and how we might apply that to clothing. So clothing that gets adapted and changed and is in a constant state of flux, hence the name. And it was a 6 look collection, but I think it was like 24 pieces, and they were kind of styled differently every time. Lots of layered transparencies, quite architectural in aesthetic as well as conceptual route. And on the outside, there were these concrete blocks, and they sort of held everything down. So a bit like an exoskeleton. This idea of light clothes, with weights on top of them. I really enjoyed making this collection. It was a lot about construction. It was like lots of layers, lots of patterns, lots of abstract shapes, all kind of peeled together with binding, and you could read all these different finishings. Quite nerdy, truth be told. Uh,
Can we have you got images of the BA collection that you could share?
this is it.
Is this just the one? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, it's funny. Like for me, this is 12 years ago, so I actually really had to
Of
dig in.
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, but that's it on the catwalk, and then these are some from the photo shoot.
Oh, we can't actually see the catwalk or the photo shoot.
Oh, can you
What's
not see the
that?
whole slide?
No. I can just see
Yeah.
the
Oh, well,
mannequin,
then that
sorry.
won't make any sense.
Yeah. I
Um,
was like, oh, is that it? Just the mannequin on the. Oh, there we go. There we go. Yes, great, great.
Weird.
Ah,
Maybe
yes,
the full
and we can
screen thing
see the.
doesn't work.
No, no, don't worry, don't worry.
All right, we'll leave it with this. This is fine. Oh,
Mm,
sorry, you couldn't see any of that. So yeah, these are the kind of layered building facades, uh,
great.
and then drawings from when I was away, um, and these kind of layered, yeah, layered transparencies and concrete blocks. Apologies, none of that would have made any sense if you didn't have the visual.
It's fine, don't worry. No, it did. It did actually. I could visualize it, but yeah, no,
I
it
mean,
was
at least we
great.
discovered that in slide 2 and not like
Yeah.
slide 30.
Yeah,
Anyway,
brilliant.
so I in 2012 I applied for the MA at RCA. Um, I really, because just to see, if I'm super honest, it was I was curious to do an MA. I wasn't heart set on one, but I thought it would be a great kind of portfolio exercise, and just to even get to interview. And I was absolutely thrilled to get in. And
Mm-hmm.
the with what I applied with was very much an idea of continuing what I'd got my teeth into in my final year of my BA, which was this kind of really architectural approach to fashion, the building, the construction, and really pushing what's kind of 3D possible with cutting and garments. Um, and like I say, I was thrilled to get in. And my MA collection really took off where that BA one had landed. So where things on my BA collection were all constructed with binding that kind of like peeled together and peeled away and used loads of different finishing techniques. I really pushed that. So these garments were all completely edged in a steel coiled boning, which bends in multiple directions. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was stitched into the edging of the garments, and then the garments were kind of strung together. So they were really sculptural, very 3D. It was like the transparency of the BA collection, but just boosted into a much more robust kind of sculptural feel and completely 3D developed on the stand. Um, Kind of referencing artists like this, Robbie Rowland's this idea of the 3D and the peeling, and very much design. Like I did a lot of my draping in front of a mirror, so it was super. It's the idea of really seeing garments from all directions and not just doing that kind of very flat front on sort of sketch design process.
Mm. Can I ask a question already? Sorry.
Go for it. Mhm.
What was the reasoning behind wanting to continue from your BA to your MA, that collection that you'd previously worked on? Like, sometimes, like I found in my own practice, sometimes I'm like, oh, thank God, that's the end of a project. Right, next one, start from scratch, like a new thing. Was there a reason why, you wanted to continue it, or did you just sort of feel like you hadn't pushed it as far as you wanted to, or what was the reasoning behind it?
I think I just felt like this. It was about really finding my own handwriting and language and aesthetic and method and process. And the BA
Mm,
collection was one way of interpreting it, using this real lightness and transparency. Um, but I think yeah, like a six-lit collection can really only be about so much. Whereas I
yes.
felt like the research and the process that I developed could be a whole other thing. And I think I
Mm,
wanted, I mean, looking back, I'm still really thrilled with that BA collection. I think it's got a real softness and sort of translucency and subtlety, but I think I kind of wanted to take it somewhere a bit punchier. Um,
mm,
and also your BA, final year, it's just 1 year. And
mm,
I think for me, I was like, this is not the entirety of what I want to say about this method or this process. There's more I want to
yeah.
say about it and
Mm,
dig deeper into how I cut, construct, make, think about clothing.
mm,
And um, yeah, I didn't have a desire to sort of like completely put that to bed and totally move on. I wanted to evolve it, I guess, which is actually quite in keeping with the whole concept, which was about this
mm,
like evolutionary layered process.
completely. Yeah. And then can I just, sorry, I'll let you carry on because
Not
you're
all.
probably gonna. The steel, yeah, the steel. How did you create that? Did you work with anyone to make that, or did you just
No,
find it, or
I I it, I did this like workshop in the summer between my BA and MA, which was actually to do something completely different. But someone had showed me this material, and I don't know if you've not seen it, I don't have you seen it before? It's like a running coil of steel, and it
oh
comes with
yeah,
running meterage.
yeah,
It's now not really used for garments because Ridgeline, like plastic boning, nearly entirely replaced it. But it has
mm,
different properties to the plastic Ridgeline because it can bend kind of flush as well as round. Um, and because of the spiral, it's got holes throughout it, which means that it could be stitched directly onto fabric. And
oh
I think I just
wonderful,
remember kind of it was like it looked like the kind of material you could make a bridge out of, like it,
mm,
and that just sort of spoke to me with a bit of
yeah, that
quite
kind of like
exactly
industrial,
that industrial
yeah,
thing, that construction thing. So I think at the beginning of my MA final year, I think I just bought a roll of it to see what it could do. And it has this amazing like flex and bounce and stretch. And I was just like, this is a wonder material.
mm,
Let's take it for a bit of a run. You know what I mean? Like I
yeah,
think in that I had a folder of different seam trials and stitch trials and all this stuff with the, I mean, I was hitting like 50, 60 different swatches of what you could do with this boning. And then I
mm,
really landed upon the idea that you could um, thread like rubber cord, for want of another word, from one string of boning to the other, a bit like what's illustrated like here.
mm,
And then you could have two panels of fabric which were it's a bit like a suspension bridge, kind of attached to each other, but with this amazing sense of bounce.
mm.
And once I
Yeah, it's
landed
so
on
interesting because
I
like your
here we
your
go.
research is. Oh, sorry.
No, I just think that was
Carry
the
on.
kind of
Mm.
point moment was hitting upon that construction method.
Yeah, it's wonderful because it's so fluid. Like even though your research is about architecture and buildings and something sort of solid, but like then it's still very much in keeping with the changing and the transparency of the one before and the movement, and it's quite. I don't know. It's a lot more fluid than you'd sort of think it would be, and then you've created these gorgeous garments from it. It's really, really wonderful.
Yeah, and this idea of like weight as well.
Mm,
I mean, it was quite a conceptual collection, if we're honest, but like the some of the pieces were so heavy, but they
mm,
kind of when they went down the catwalk, they like bounced, which was deceptively light looking. I mean, yeah, yeah, I sort of reference like thinking of bridges quite a lot, but it's that sort of making mentality. Um,
mm,
and this is the boning is actually silver, but I dyed it black. And then this is like the rubber cord that I used was transparent, which I loved because when it caught the light, it gave you this really linear language. But when it didn't catch the light, you actually just couldn't see it. So it looked like these panels of fabric were just floating near each other.
mm.
Um, quite
Beautiful.
quite beguiling, I guess. And then the method was that there was actually I sort of pattern cut 4 core garments, these first 4 on the left. And then for the next 4, I used the same pattern pieces but assembled them differently. So it was a bit like a sort of Meccano methodology nearly of shapes and panels, and it was all derived from stand work.
Mm, beautiful.
Uh, and then these are some of the final pieces. So you get these lovely like views through, which I was sort of gunning for, and like huge enveloping, massive panel pieces that curve up and around the body and are like strung together, falling apart. And like this is a good example. So you can, in some lights, you can see these threads, but actually from a distance, often you can't. So it's not clear. It's not clear how these pieces are, you know, maintaining proximity to each other. They just look like they're sort of, it's, having said flux for the previous collection, these do kind of look like they're in flux. So there's a lot of similar ideas going on, albeit with really quite different aesthetic outcomes. And I think
Mm,
that was also partly what I wanted to do was like take these ideas and these concepts from the BA and push them into an alternative aesthetic outcome, but with quite a similar conceptual route.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
So that
Sorry,
was
I'll stop interrupting you now. I'm gonna
no,
put
not at all.
myself on mute. So
I think what's next? Well, what's funny is that having done this like completely black MA collection, from then when I graduated, I won what was called the BFC graduate traineeship, um, which was like an award where a young London brand could apply to have a graduate work for them for a year, and the salary would be paid by the BFC, which is the British Fashion Council, and then the graduates could also apply to receive this kind of first job. But what was funny is that they sort of chose a winning brand and they chose a winning student, and then they sort of smushed us together. So I ended up going to Roxanda, who's known for her phenomenal use of color, which was quite daunting, if I'm honest. When I was told to go there for interview, I was like, are they completely insane? I've got a completely black collection. How is this? This is going to be a hot mess of an interview. But actually, what really drives Roxanda is that she trained as an architect before becoming a fashion designer, and she's deeply into like sculpture, shape, form, architecture, concrete, modernism, Alvar Aalto, all that kind of stuff. So actually, I was really speaking her language. And I remember she said in the interview, she was like, to be honest, I do the color. So, funnily enough, what she wanted from members of her team was not what she could already do, which makes a lot of sense. Um, and and so yeah, I got that job and kind of dove straight in. But because I was quite junior, as you are when you start, I ended up assisting everybody on that team, and the brand was very, very textile driven. So I ended up working on like embroidery and print and jacquard and knit and shoes and bag, like anything any of the team designers, of which there were like 4, needed help with. I just got kind of chucked on. But I was pretty up for it. And so it was a bit of a baptism of fire, because I would have said previously my main driving things were like construction, form, shape, pattern cutting. I mean, I did a completely black final collection. There were interesting textures and materials there, but it was not about print or motif or anything. But this is what happened. Yeah, we went straight in, and I learned the most phenomenal amount in this job. They moved really fast. At the time, we were doing 4 women's wear collections a year, plus like children's wear and sunglasses and bags and collaborations. Like it was just mayhem, go, go, go. But it just meant I worked across like a phenomenal amount. And like it wasn't it wasn't really like an option in many. Someone was like, can you do a knit artwork for da da da? You couldn't really say no. You just had to sort of work it out, and hope you're sitting next to someone who could help you. And a lot of YouTubing how to do certain things on Adobe Illustrator or whatever. Um, but it was one hell of an education. I think that's the only slide actually. So yeah, I think I was there just shy of 2 years. Um, these I might skip for now, because this was a sort of like side projects at the time. I was really interested in contemporary dance, and I managed to meet some people and do some costume projects. So these are sort of kind of during the tail end of my BA and during my MA. So it sort of is no surprise I ended up in this portfolio career, because I was kind of always kicking about different projects at the same time. And this was a big costume project in 2018. But again, I think we might come back to that if we have time, because it's a bit fashion adjacent. Too good. I think I left Roxanda in sort of February, March 2016 to move to Too Good, which some people might know, some people might not, but it's a mixed discipline studio. It does furniture, interiors, and fashion. But the fashion, they only started in 2015. And even from my BA actually, but definitely on my MA, Faye Toogood, the sort of principal designer, was someone very much on my radar because she was working in interiors, installation, furniture. I was a big fan. And I heard in 2014 that she was considering starting a fashion side of the label. And I kind of bookmarked that and was like, if she ever does, I've got to be part of that because it was an aesthetic that was so up my street. It was a methodology I already had a lot of time for. Yes, and so when they started a very small scale fashion label in 2015, I got in touch. And it took about a year from meeting them to actually starting because they were so small. But I eventually started in 2016 as their in-house designer, working directly with Erica Toogood, who is a pattern cutter. So interestingly, having been very form pattern cutting construction driven on my BAMA, I then had this baptism of fire into textiles and all of the different ways of textiles and applied textiles and Roxanda. And then when I arrived at Too Good, it was really more, it was more the motif textile color side of things that I was responsible for, including the limited edition, which I'll explain. And then I was kind of a support for Erica's 3D pattern cutting. So I sort of like did this slight shift. But I think from at this point in my career, being like ambidextrous, for want of another word, was the most powerful thing about my practice because they needed someone who could do both because they were small. So I was there in-house for 4 years and we did 2 major collections a year, but they were unisex. And within each collection, we'd have like ready-to-wear fabrics. We'd also have special fabrics like print, jacquard, knit, you name it. And then there was this really exciting category, which was limited edition, which we made in limited quantities in-house, where we could really do stuff that was really ornate and handmade, a bit more experimental, lots of hand painting, applique. This is like a rag rug. This was hand cut felt. These were painted with a kind of like earth pigment. This is hand painted and hand cut. We did all sorts. It was really amazing. And it was a tiny team. It was Erica on shape and me on everything else. And we might occasionally have an intern. But that was us. Yeah, loads of stuff with these guys. Again, it was like really enriching that the breadth that I was exposed to at Roxanda, and taking it for a real run. Across, yeah, this is like embroidered, screen printed, hand painted, digital print, quilting, very, very little left uncovered at this place. In 2020, I sort of shifted the way that I work with Too Good. So I stopped being their in-house designer because along with all the creative, I was actually also managing the collections. So I was doing like all the factory liaising, fabric ordering, and we were creating sample collections that were upward of like 200 pieces. And it was an awful lot. And it wasn't really where I wanted to specialize my time. So we negotiated actually that I would leave from being in-house, but continue to do all the textile development and artworking, storytelling freelance, and then in-house instead they got a product developer, which was kind of part of the job that I was doing. So I let go of that half, but kept the half that I liked. And since then, yes, actually since then, yeah, I've done a kind of design package for them every season. So Faye will issue like a story, or a mood or a theme and some fantastic visual references because she's great at that, to which I'll create a kind of response and then we'll flesh that out into maybe some prints, some jacquards, a limited edition technique, something hand painted, something like that. So these are some of the collections we've done since using that sort of process. So this is the beginning of when I started to work freelance on more project-based things concurrently. Yeah, but some really fun collections in here. Also, whilst at Too Good, this is kind of more in-house than since I've been freelance. We did a lot of collaborations. It was a great job for that because they were growing. They were keen to do collaborations that would maybe get them a bit more exposed. But also, I think as a brand, it sort of has a slightly cult status. So some brands were also very keen to work with Too Good because I think they felt like it was quite cool to be associated with them. So this was like an accessories project we did with a Japanese brand called Chacoli. These are super fun. And then two major ones that I worked on, which were great. One of which was a collaboration with Carhartt, where we took like their classic styles and chopped them up and like edited them, worked into them, expanded the patterns, made them kind of beefier, chunkier, but kept all of this remnant of like the process of how they've been constructed. Which, funnily enough, when I was putting this together, I was like, it's like this still the same idea as that kind of BA collection MA stuff. Oh, this was great. I love this. Really pure, very cool. And then big one that I worked on for about a year, the final year that I was there, was a collaboration with Birkenstock. So this was to design 6 pairs of shoes, and a ready-to-wear collection plus accessories. Really big projects. And I did this one just by myself, actually. And it was great fun. The basic concept was that we wanted to recut the shoes and put new shape making on that classic 2-strap Arizona sandal that is quite ubiquitous. And when we recut them, I made these cardboard models of them to take to Birkenstock to show them the forms that we wanted. I basically realized that these pattern shapes were just a gift. They were so cool when you saw them flat. So from the pattern, these are literally the patterns of the shoes. From that, I developed it into a series of prints. So this is like a silk scarf, this is a towel, and there was actually a ready-to-wear print in here, which is like the outline of all the pattern pieces and a big t-shirt with one of the shapes. So it was a really nice project in terms of how kind of sometimes how few ideas you need to flesh something out to be really rich and very impactful. And the garments were really cool. They were kind of like scrunchy and adaptable, big shapes. This photo shoot was actually at Tate Modern as well. It's really nice. Yeah, I love this one. When I was at Too Good, when I started in 2016, as I said, they were tiny. They'd actually not even employed anyone yet on the fashion side of things. So within my negotiation about a job, what we landed on is that I would do a 4-day-a-week role because that's kind of what they could afford, which gave me one extra day to which I wanted to do some independent projects because, as I said, I was sort of doing a bit in contemporary dance. But what came along is that I was approached by the fashion MA from at RCA, which obviously I'd studied on, but the staff had changed by this point. Anyway, I was approached by them to ask if I'd come on as a research assistant, which was to help one of the senior tutors called Susan Postlethwaite, who Colleen might know, to help her with her research, which was about manufacturing in the UK and like future methods of manufacturing, all of which I was quite interested in. So initially, I went 1 day a week there to do that. But one thing led to another, and I ended up assisting Susan with her teaching. So I taught 1 day a week at the RCA for, in the end, 5 years, 6 years maybe. Where I started doing I think I started on the biodesign challenge back in 2016. And then I taught on the biodesign platform. And then I moved to the future systems platform, which was kind of really where I wanted to be. And I stayed there for a good 4 years. And what we taught on that program was, it's quite as it sounds, really, like alternative ways of operating within the fashion industry. And that could be from a manufacturer point of view, so different ways of making, tools, machinery, materiality, but really it was about different ways of like operating. So how can we question these huge juggernaut systems that exist of like fashion brands and supply chains and do things that, broadly speaking, the imperative is like to be more sustainable, however we might interpret that word. And it was a great job. Like the students were always kind of amazing, inspiring, but often I would also be commissioned to do like lectures about different topics, which was basically it was great for me as well, really, to be pushed to like research and learn more. And we had a great host of like guest speakers with really interesting specific practice takes opinions. And so I would often like host those guest speakers. So this was kind of like rumbling on in the background for a long time till 2022. So yeah, 6 years. So 2021, this is when I'm freelancing for Too Good, doing their textile design for 2 collections a year and sometimes some other projects. I'm still doing 1 day a week at the RCA. And then I took this, which was a part-time research and development job for a company called Reweave, which was it was a startup, but it was started by a woman who had a very established textiles practice. Her name is Kirsty McDougall, and she was a weaver. And she was exploring how you might weave with textile waste to create new fabrics for brands. So I came on to lead this project. It was a funded role, funded by the BFTT, which was a partner of Central St. Martin's within UAL. I know it's a bit messy and complicated, but anyway, it was a 15-month research project part-time to see how far we could push these textiles made from textile waste. And it was amazing, huge learning curve. I mean, I knew about weaving, but I wasn't an expert. But what I did really know about was like supply chains and also how fashion brands operate, because the whole point of this project was that they wanted to work with brands to help them close the loop on their own waste. And towards that, we needed a good understanding of our client, which I think was what I brought to the role, because I really kind of could have been their client when I was at Too Good. And we did loads. We went all over the UK looking at different methods, different suppliers, different ways of making fabric. We went to Italy a bit. It was amazing. We developed loads of different things. They now have a really rich portfolio. And we worked with some pretty serious brands, like commissioned projects where, for example, McQueen would send us like their end of season sampling waste and see what we could make it into. Same with Gucci. Converse was incredibly complicated because their pattern cutting waste was so bitty, because it was just for shoes, but great challenges. Yeah, really exciting stuff. I think I popped this in because I thought it was important to mention that like a lot of work that I do is with people that I've worked with before. And so in 2022, as a freelance, I briefly went back to Roxander. They got back in touch. They had a kind of, well, there was a particular project they wanted working on, which was about utility, like they called it fluid utility. It was a gap in their collection. And Roxander just kind of remembered my handwriting from when I had been there and knew that I was freelance. And so I went back 2 days a week for a couple of months and developed some pieces for their new collection. And I did that again in 2024. It's not like a huge amount of work, but it's very important to me to like keep those relationships, basically. And I mean, obviously all fashion's like 6 months ahead, but it was really fun seeing that on the catwalk, because it got developed in-house. I just did the initial design stuff. This is 2022. This was a really busy time in my life because I think Too Good was ticking over. I was 2 days a week on a reweave. I still had the RCA 1 day, but I got approached for the most amazing projects and I couldn't really say no, which was to develop materials collaboratively with an artist called Cecilia Vicuña, who had been commissioned by Tate Modern to do the Turbine Hall installation. And this was in like February 2022, and the opening for the Turbine Hall installation was going to be in October, which is like completely insane. But Cecilia Vicuña was based in New York. She's from Chile. And in those months, she had some travel planned. So to sort of move things along, Tate Modern independently commissioned someone to develop Cecilia's material language, but in the UK, because she had this amazing network of makers and suppliers in America. But a lot of her work is about deforestation and environmentalism, and it would have been absurd to ship all of this stuff from America to the UK. So instead, they wanted to develop a UK-based network, which I was really well positioned to do because of all the reweave research. And yeah, this was months of like really, again, quite nerdy, R&D, which is research and development, by the way, testing all these different materials that Cecilia had like using, but trying to find suppliers that were in the UK, or like nudging the material choices to be more appropriate, like for the UK. Like we've got a lot of wool here. So leaning things more towards what would be kind of like locally sourced and make these sculptures very much of their location. So with as well as the materials, we would sort of try and dipping them in what we call substrates. So like plaster, gesso, resin, I mean, you name it, we dipped it. And then in depth, like recording and documentation of all of these different experiments and sending them over to Cecilia. We did this entire project digitally, which is kind of made like wild. We didn't actually meet until October that year. But once we did sort of small scale experimentation and then relocated to an artist like Fabricators in Erith, which is super East London, and incrementally like scaled up all of these experiments to this, which was a month-long installation in the turbine hall where we sort of took these materials to like their ultimate scale, which was about 30 meters high. And then Cecilia came over for this bit, and the install was like it was kind of like a dance, to be honest. There was no predetermined design for these sculptures. It was really her responding in the space to the materials, to the architecture, and working with a quite substantial team to like collectively form these hanging sculptures, which are called quipu. And it's to sit under a quipu is like an ancient Chilean practice. So she was kind of bringing that Chilean practice to London, but using materials of the UK. It was really special. I mean, it was very intense time in my life, but quite wow. And kind of crazy to think how small these material samples started before they grew and grew and grew. Yeah, so that was, yes, that opened October 22. And there is so much in here. There's like wool, cardboard, hemp, linen, cotton, rope, you name it. Yeah, very, very satisfying when it finally went up. These are another few. Yes, Too Good just sort of ticks over in my life. I think I started with them on their second collection, and I have just submitted their designs for their 23rd. It's like it's a nice punctuation in my life, and watching the brand kind of grow and evolve and kind of get more playful, I think. And this has just come out. This is actually just arriving in stores this week. But I really love this one. Faber Futures. This came along towards the tail end, I think, of Cecilia Vicuña, and it was Faber Futures is a biodesign company. I knew of them because I used to teach the biodesign platform at the RCA, and that's why Audrey Chiesa, who's their founder, is like quite prolific in that field. She developed a technology called Color, which is where you can dye fabric using bacteria. And I think that it's quite known now, but like in 2016 when it was really new. So then she's created a consultancy called Faber Futures, and they have created, it's really worth checking out, this platform called Normal Phenomena of Life, which is a biodesign lifestyle store. So they have all sorts of different biodesign products by other people, like lamps or posters that are printed with algae or stuff like that. But they wanted to do their own kind of flagship product using Natsai's Color bacteria dyed technology, but towards this garment that was like embodied what the brand was about. And so they commissioned me to design it with them. And these images along the bottom are actually from the mood board that they sent me. It was quite conceptual. but we arrived at this kind of adaptable outerwear piece with a kind of front pocket that you could string in and out of the garment. Um, it was kind of the idea actually was that it was going to layer up and maybe be 3 or 4 garments, but they might come in time. And then these are the bacteria samples that they issued, which are just stunning. It's like you can't really control this process. Sometimes the bacteria will go a bit pink, sometimes a bit blue. It's actually to do with its pH. So we just made the whole garment in white silk, very extra. Um, but it's beautiful. It looks great. It's also unisex, which obviously was like stuff that I was bringing from Too Good. And the design museum have acquired one, so it's been on show there for about a year, I think. I think until the end of this month. And yeah, it got some great press, which was kind of the purpose. Like I think they only put maybe 6 into production. It almost wasn't about that. It was about proving what you can do with these really new technologies and how wearable they could be. Yeah, amazing one to work on. Yes, hopefully this is the penultimate project. So I'm conscious I've really gone over time. These were so there's I was invited to exhibit in an exhibition in Edinburgh at the end of last year. I moved to Edinburgh, by the way, in September 2022. So just at the end of that Cecilia Vicuña project. And this place, if you're ever here, it's a gallery of Scottish craft and design. And they asked if I would contribute to this exhibition. And I decided to make these sort of, I've been thinking about this for a while, but like sort of interior pieces, just to see, why not, that responded to like this particular window that they had as a like a neo net curtain, something to sit in front of a window that gives you privacy from the inside, but also kind of responds to light coming in. And truth be told, you can sort of see it quite aesthetically. They were actually really harking back to my BA collection, because when the 2 gallerists came to my studio, they actually pulled out some of those pieces and were really intrigued by them, which was funny to me because I hadn't thought about them in a long time, so they were like 12 years old. But I decided to develop them into these kind of architectural hangings that speak to all of that stuff that I was looking at back then. It's still stuff that interests me. And they were bought, which was lovely. So they are installed in a client's home. And I really like, they're sort of in this funny space between fashion, interiors, and architecture, which, truth be told, is somewhere I kind of want to dig into a bit more. And they photographed amazingly, so they got some great press. It was a really nice project, and it's actually something I'm trying to develop at the moment. Oh my God, we haven't even done this one yet. Maybe we come back to that.
Yeah, maybe that's something because I actually
Too
wanted to
big.
ask you some, some other questions that are maybe a bit more sort of personal, maybe. I don't know. Because like I think something that I always sort of noticed with working with students is that sort of self-doubt and worry of like, am I doing this right? Is this what I should be doing? Is this the right answer? And I guess I kind of wanted to ask you, going through all these different projects that some are like quite vastly different, but also kind of connected. Have you ever sort of like self-doubted yourself in your practice and what you're capable of, or how have you kind of overcome that? Or have you even had time to think about it? Probably not.
I think I think I realized very quickly, and the Roxanda job was amazing. I learned loads, but I also decided in that job that the traditional fashion linear route was just not for me. Like I was
Mm,
not interested in kind of jumping through hoops and being like promoted to designer, senior designer, creative director in these high fashion brands. I was like, it was just thought it just looked really limiting. And I was sort of watching people quite high up in that company really sacrifice their lives. um, and I was like, I don't think that's what it's about.
mm,
um, and I kind of just thought, I think I'm going to do something that's much more sideways than this. And And I remember like even at Roxanda, they were like, why are you working on costume for dance? That's got nothing to do with fashion. I was like, of course it does. It's like garment construction for movement. Why wouldn't it? I got very frustrated by this like really like narrow view of things. And
Mm,
I think I wanted to do something that was much more spoke to my interests. But I guess what that meant was that because I was sidestepping this very known linear route, then everything was a bit off-piste, really. Like there wasn't
mm,
any sort of point of comparison for whether or not it was right because I was
mm.
doing something that didn't really compare. I
Yeah,
think,
did you ever like panic and think, what am I doing? Should I have gone that sort of route? Or did you just really know it within yourself that you really didn't want to do that and it just wasn't right for you?
yeah, no, not I didn't really doubt it, no, if I'm honest. I mean,
Mm,
there's some I think when you're freelance, there's a constant slight doubt. Uh,
mm,
because you've got to make sure you've got enough projects for things to be coming in because you don't have a salary or like a known salary. Um,
mm,
uh, and sometimes and often you'll have a project say lined up for maybe the next 6 months or 8 months or 9 months, and in the back of your mind you'll be like, but what about after that?
mm,
uh, but I think if you've cast the net out wide enough, um, and been enjoyable to work with, in my experience, things do
mm,
tend to come through. You can be tactical as well and have kind of backups. Like, I mean, I really enjoy teaching. I don't want to imply that it's a backup, but it's a very good known stable because you know
mm,
that there'll be, say, a day a week for like the next 10 months or something. Um,
mm,
but I think reweave was probably the job actually that was most left left of center because the job description for that one actually asked for someone with a PhD, which I didn't have, and someone who with a background in weaving, which I didn't actually have either. Um, but I I still thought there was quite a lot I could offer to that project because I actually thought the person who was leading the project was a weaver, so arguably didn't need a weaver.
mm,
Um,
mm.
which was maybe something I'd interpreted from like that Rox Under interview, and she was like, "I don't need someone who does color. I do color."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
uh,
Mm,
yeah, I think also it's important not to underestimate what you do know rather than focusing a lot on like maybe what you don't. Um,
mm,
like I think studying fashion is a really, really broad education. I think you have to learn about shape making, material, construction, drawing. You also do all the digital stuff like portfolio, even CAD drawings. It's like you learn a lot, and that's
mm,
really, really applicable. Um,
mm.
yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question.
No, no, it does. It definitely does. I guess I was just kind of, how do you overcome those sort of like insecurities as a student of kind of like finding your design language and how do you kind of work through that insecurity? Like, have you ever had that? Do you just keep pushing through and see what happens? Or,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is a way to do any of this, if I'm honest. That's a
mm,
complete
mm,
construct. It's like, uh, I think so. When I was at Roxanda, there was a designer, Colette, who was an amazing fashion designer, amazing, and she did not draw. She hates drawing. Like she did phenomenal stand work, like amazing.
mm,
And she would drape, and then she would photograph it, and then she'd get those photographs into Photoshop, and then she'd Photoshop the drape into the design, and that would be what she would submit, and it's excellent fashion design. Other people might draw more. Some people might flat pattern cut and then build up. Like I really do not think there is a way to do this or like prescribed
mm,
hoops to jump through.
mm,
In fact, and this is also kind of what we were doing at the RCA with the Future of Fashion Systems thing was like really encouraging people to question that given methodology or like linearity or pre-described industry route. Like I don't know who said that's the way to do it.
yeah, completely. That's very true. And with all of the projects, you've done so many incredible projects, all in such short spaces of time. I don't know how you've managed it, but has there been one or two that have been your absolute favorites that you were like, oh, I'm most proud of those?
Oh, I don't know.
Just put you on the spot, you know.
Uh, do you know, probably not. No, I think it's like the mix of it, which
Mm,
I find really exciting. And I feel a bit like I feel increasingly about work the way I feel about food, which is that like I kind of like the mixed diet of it. And
mm,
I know there was only 1 year at Too Good and it was because Faye and Erica both had maternity leave at the same time. So I went full time in that job for 1 year. And it's the year at work I've enjoyed the least by some
mm,
distance. Because it was just obviously it was just the same. It was like very same. And I found that I really, really lost objectivity, if I'm honest.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, you need more variety.
yeah, I really did. And like, yes, I had to drop the RCA job for that year actually. Um,
Mm,
and it was after that year that I actually left and being in the house at all and went to this completely project-based model because I find that
mm,
doing different things concurrently they end up feeding each other, really.
mm,
And like
mm,
um feeding your curiosity and interest and skill set. Um,
mm, mm.
so it's hard to, and I mean, I suppose it also depends which ones come most recently, like which one's kind of more prolific in your mind. Um, uh, but yeah, they're just really different. They're like generally it's like they sort of speak to different parts of my brain and interests. Um,
Mm,
we,
mm,
like the Biennale project, which was like that was a curation project, that was left field. I didn't have any experience in that. Um,
mm,
that was that was really impactful. I think that actually, and it had quite a wide reach, which was very satisfying. Um, but then there's other things which are much more making based. Like I actually cannot believe that those Cecilia Vicuña sculptures happened because there was a point in like July when we were in this like artist fabricators in Erith trying to get these things to hold together at more than 2 meters. And I was like, in October, these have got to be 30 meters. Kind of like, how the hell is this going to happen? But it did.
mm.
It's kind of, I don't know. I think I like I like a good challenge.
Yeah. And with the architecture as being like your sort of starting point for your BA and your MA, like why do you think that is? Like what is it about buildings and
Oh, that's a very straightforward question. Both my parents are architects. And I
okay.
yeah, and it was like my brother's a writer and like a sports writer. So he wasn't going to be an architect. But when we were kids, everyone was like, oh yeah, Louise will definitely be an architect. She's good at drawing and like I like building and shapes and stuff. And then it was kind of when I was about like 17, I took a bit of a handbrake turn and decided to do an art foundation kind of with the idea to do fashion. But it's just like
Mm.
it's like an itch I don't think I'll ever shake. Um,
It's kind of
and
ingrained in you, isn't it?
it is, and I think it sort of impacts the way I see um actually yeah, I mean I still think that I think the built environment is like fascinating and that there's like you obviously we exist within like cities and infrastructure and then within that there's buildings and within that there's interiors. And then within that, there's the things that we wear. And I think these are all just kind of connected shells.
Mm.
I mean, also it doesn't surprise me either that I've ended up working for Roxander, who trained as an architect, and then Faye Toogood, whose primary practice really was interiors and then
Mm.
furniture and then clothing. Like I've never really been that interested in like the fashion industry, but I've been much more interested in design and creation where the output could be clothing.
Mm.
Um,
Mm. So trends and sort of new shows and things like that have never been something that you've been interested in.
No, I mean, I kept an eye on them when I was studying, but I'd way rather go to an art gallery.
Mm.
Mm. and uh, I can't see myself working in like high street fashion. I could see myself more working as a sculptor. It's like that sort of lean of things. Uh,
Mm, mm,
and I think it didn't happen entirely by design, but it really doesn't surprise me that I've worked like this Doho So project is very much garment design and creation for a sculptor, and they're exhibited like in a gallery context. Um, and I know there's not like a wild amount of that work around, but I do think it's a space. It's a space that exists.
mm,
Because I
amazing.
think I have a bit of like uh, I'm very passionate about sustainability and responsibility, and I do think also there's a lot of clothes out there. I don't know how many more fashion designers creating stuff we necessarily need, but I think there's other outlets for the creativity and the knowledge and the skills that don't just have to be mass production of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Louise. I'm just aware of time. I
No, of
could probably
course.
chat to you for another hour asking you more questions, but I think yeah, hopefully have you back again. Um, yeah, thank you so much. It's been so insightful and so helpful, and I just know for the SCF students, they'll find it super fascinating to hear your career and your journey and your creative process. It's been so so cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, guys. See you later.